Streamin', streamin', streamin'. Streamin', streamin', streamin'. Voodoo. Yeah. It has ass. Sorry, I'm looking at the link for the stream and it's just like, the last 3 letters are literally ass. Way to go, me! I'm immediately demonetized this video. But that's fine, because I'm not monetizing any of my videos for these right now. I have no reason to monetize anything, actually, right now. No, I have immense reason to monetize things. I just don't want to, because it took so long just to get to the point where I could monetize before. Anyways, time for another stream. I don't actually know if this is the end or not. It might be, because this is a much shorter chapter. But maybe it won't be. Who knows? I hope it's not. Hi, Mayura! I saved a boy in the last chapter. That was my first time losing consciousness. We often hear of regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but this is my first time actually experiencing it. I'm in a clinic! Hello? Are you okay? Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. I didn't intend to respond, but it seemed my body language had told him I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. Scratches all over my body had also been treated. My sense of pain also returned with my consciousness, causing me to groan from intense pain shooting all throughout me. I also got shot in the shoulder last time. That was fun. Dr. Edie! Don't try to get up. Just stay lying down, please. It seems you took quite a few blows to the head. I want you to stay rested so we can monitor your condition for at least the next 24 hours. Where is this? This is my clinic. Pleased to meet you. My name is Edie. I remembered that this young doctor was the one in the car headed the opposite way earlier. Is there somebody here? Where's Oshi-san? I'll call him over. There's no smoking inside the clinic, so I had him smoke outside. Dr. Edie left the room to go call Oshi. The scenery outside the window was tinted with gold. The pouring rain had stopped, with the voices of the Higurashi heralding the cooling temperature. I felt that the tone of the Higurashi's voices was comforting. Eventually I could hear heavy footsteps coming closer, which I reckoned to be Oshi's. The fog that had enveloped my head slowly faded back to reality. What had happened since then? What had happened to the boy? What about the reinforcements from Tokyo? The door to the room flew open, allowing Dr. Edie and Oshi to enter. So, there's no serious damage, is there? I can't promise that. I assessed the wound to his head was dangerous the moment I saw it. Got it. I want to have a little chat alone with him for a bit, would you mind? Yeah, go ahead. Call me if you need anything. Oshi, after basically forcing Dr. Edie outside, shut the door. How are you feeling? I did something I'm not used to, so I'm pretty banged up all over. Oshi brought a folding chair that was leaning against the wall and sat down beside the bed. Were the perpetrators arrested? Unfortunately, no. They've probably already fled the prefecture or are being hidden by the villagers. Well, he won't let them get away. What about the minister's grandson? They're taking care of him at the station. But your colleagues in Tokyo are rather insistent that nothing be recorded. Shige-chan doesn't like that too much. The kidnapping was a confidential matter, so his custody was probably also kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, how it would be covered up, treated like it never happened, would be handled by the brass. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, then our job had been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out, but something like that was no longer my concern. My role in this case was over. Sorry for the trouble. You must think that public safety is rather unseemly place, don't you? No. We all work on the government's dime. Oshi laughed boisterously. When we first met, I was somewhat prejudiced against Oshi, but now the feeling was gone completely. I'm still prejudiced against Oshi, but that's because he can be a terrible person sometimes. It'd be more convenient for us if this case was handled properly instead of being hidden away. If that happened, we would be able to have something to go on the Sonozaki family with, since they're all behind it all. Well, if we just start poking around, we'll get all sorts of pressure put on us, though. What a mess. Are you going to continue the fight against the Sonozaki family after this? Nah. There's all sorts of dark rumors swirling around them, but it's not like I have a personal grudge. It'd be a waste not to step on any toes here. It'd be wise not to step on toes, not a waste. Nah. Oshi laughed happily, and I couldn't help but laugh along. Oh, that's right. There's a word at the station about the prefectural office. Your colleagues arrived in Nagoya, and are driving up here right now. You got your battle scars, so you'll be recalled to Tokyo, apparently. That's how it's shaken up. Good job. Your work in Okiyamiya is safely over. I was being called to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words. I'm deeply thankful for your cooperation, Oshi-san. Seems the collaboration fee I paid you didn't go to waste. I kind of meant that as a joke, though. Oshi took out his wallet and casually pulled out several large bills and jammed them into the breast pocket of my shirt. This isn't a refund of the collaboration fee, you hear? This is just me gifting you a little spending money. The booze around here is pretty good. Here's this to buy yourself a little souvenir. Oshi flashed me a grin. If your injuries turn out to be not too serious, call me before you head back to Tokyo, will ya? The old man and Sato-san said they'd like to sit at the table with you again. Oh my. Can't refuse that. And no tricks this time. Just plain old fun. They always say that. This world is done for if any active officer can cheat that blatantly. It's not that often that we meet someone who's more than a match for us. It's too bad you're going back to Tokyo. When I heard the words going back to Tokyo from Oshi, I was reminded once again that I was relieved from my duties. Soon Yuki would be giving birth. It might still be possible to attend the delivery that I had at one time given up on. When I thought that, the pains from my injuries seemed trivial. I wanted to hurry back to Tokyo and see Yuki at once. Can you pretend that your injuries are a bit more serious and hang around Okiyamiya for a bit? I could introduce you to a few nice places. Of course, I won't make you pay for everything. I'm terribly sorry, but I'll have to take a rain check on that. My wife is due to give birth any day now. I want to hurry back home. Oh, my. I didn't know that. Then you shouldn't be hanging around here. You have to hurry back home. For a while after that, Oshi asked all sorts of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering with me. Aw, it's nice. Well then, how do you feel? Think you can get up? Yeah, it's not so bad, thanks to you. I can get up and walk no problem. I stood up and shuffled around for a bit, which seemed to amuse Oshi. Nah, I just thought you might not feel comfortable at the hospital in Hinamizawa. Dr. Irie said he wanted you to stay overnight, but we still haven't caught the perpetrators. So, for the time being, this is enemy territory for you, after all. Are you saying this hospital isn't safe? Nah. Well, Dr. Irie is someone who's well regarded in the community. I don't think anything will happen while you're here, but I'm more worried about your mental health. I had relaxed a bit now that things had progressed this far, but it was exactly as though she had said. When I realized this was enemy territory, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. But the only thing left for me to do was leave. The chance that I could come to harm was logically fairly low. But that didn't mean I was completely safe. That's right. If I'm just going to be lying down, then doing it at a hotel bed wouldn't be all that different. Right. I also think that's for the best. At that moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oshi's shoulder. It was the evening. The hours when I could call Yuki at the hospital were almost over. I wanted to tell her as quickly as possible that I'd soon be back at her side. I want to call Yuki at the hospital. Is there a public phone in the lobby? Nah, you newlyweds are all like this. If I recall correctly, there's one by the register. I'll be waiting here, so go ahead. Oshi laughed, laughing while saying that he was jealous, opened the window, and pulled out a cigarette even though he was in a hospital room. Appreciative at how considerate Oshi was, I set out for the lobby to find the phone. The lobby was just a short distance down the hallway from the hospital room. I thought this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course... Oh, nice! Cool. I'm glad someone said hi back. It was nothing compared to the general hospital Yuki was admitted to. Running inside a hospital wasn't the best manners, but calling hours would end soon, so I dashed over in a hurry. There was nobody else in the lobby. It may have been the evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. Well, this might be lucky for me. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it would still be embarrassing to have someone listen to the conversation between me and Yuki. Taking a quick look around, I soon found the payphone. Digging around in my pockets, I grabbed a few coins. I was calling Tokyo from here, so I'd burned through this amount fairly quickly. Picked up the receiver, inserted a coin, then dialed the number for Yukis Hospital, which I had completely memorized at this point. Nice! The number for Yuki's hospital was a lot of 8s and 9s, so dialing it inevitably took some time. Normally it wouldn't be a big deal, but currently any time was precious. However, I felt that something was strange as I was dialing in the number. I didn't know exactly how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. This unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Somehow I felt I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone. Without feeling a response, I hung up the receiver to try again. The coin packed out from the return slot. We insert in the coin and be dialing again, but the receiver was still dead silent. What is this? Is it disconnected? While I was wasting time like this, the amount I had to spend talking with Yuki shrunk. I began to feel needlessly impatient. Excuse me! I felt the presence of someone on the other side of the glass, so I called out. There was an immediate response, and a man who seemed like a pharmacist came over. Yes, how can I help you? Pardon me. This phone seems to be acting a little strange. Could you take a look at it? The man came over and tried testing various things with the receiver pressed to his ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at the hospital, not someone from the phone company. Just as I didn't know much about phones, neither would he. Huh? What's this? The man helped with the cord connected to the phone on the wall. It was completely severed. What the heck is that? Well, this is a dilly of a pickle. Can't do anything about this until someone with the phone company comes and fixes it. If you're looking for a phone, do you want to use the one in the office? I didn't want the people in the hospital office around while I was talking. Is there another payphone close by? Let's see, if you leave here and follow the road, you'll come out into the shopping district. I think there's a smoke shop on the corner around there. If you head that way, you should be able to find one soon enough. I was dressed in the hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. My head was wrapped in bandages. Looking at me, you could tell I was a hospital patient. No matter how you looked at it, it was not just to be wandering around outside. But that's where the impetuous of youth came in. Choosing the chance to call for Yuki for even a little longer, I headed outside in my current state. In a hospital gown. Follow the road to the shopping district. Should be able to find one soon enough. With only those 2 lines as my guides, I ran outside the gates of the hospital. With the village nestled in a valley, when the sun set, it got dark quickly. The sparse streetlights lit up enough to start attracting moths. The Higurashi, knowing the time for their course was soon at a close, redoubled their frail cries. Finding the payphone wasn't as easy as the person at the hospital had suggested. Was it still up ahead? Did I miss it already? Was I getting farther away? Just as I was about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty towering over me, I found a shop. Feel bad because Luca and John just got their house sold, so it'll be a lot of packing and unpacking between planning for the stream. Getting poor Bagel. Bagel? Is that a cat? Do they have a cat named Bagel? Or is it a dog named Bagel? I found a shop at the corner with cigarettes written on a small sign. My joy spurred me on. Just as I had heard at the hospital, set next to the counter on the cigarette shop was an antiquated payphone. I wasn't wearing a watch, so I didn't know what time it was. And I probably didn't have much left, though. But it was enough. Cat named Bagel. Good. Just as long as I could tell Yuki my job was done, I'd be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid a coin down the slot. But I felt that something was strange, just like at the hospital. Even after inserting the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver and tried putting in the coin one more time, but there was absolutely no response. This phone was dead. It couldn't be. Thinking about it, I felt along the cord protruding from the back of the phone. Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my bafflement was accompanied by a sense of unease. It seemed the cord had been severed cleanly by a sharp blade of some sort. I may be mistaken. I didn't know about Bagel. And hello. It didn't look like much time had passed since it was cut. Excuse me. Hello. Opening up the window of the tobacco shop, I looked for someone in the dimly lit interior. Evidently, it was sounds of someone plodding down some stairs, and an old lady appeared. The old lady's plodding and lethargic steps, for some reason, only served to make me more frantic. You need some cigarettes? I'll need to get my husband. I'm not here to buy cigarettes. Rather, this phone here. Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking them to take a look, it was going to get me nowhere. I swallowed back my words. Sorry, it seems this phone is broken, and I was wondering if you could tell me where there's another payphone. The lady moved her jaw up and down slowly, as if chewing on the meanings of my words. It seemed that she wouldn't understand until she had digested things thoroughly. So the phone is broken? That's a dilly of a pickle. You should try another payphone. The old lady directed me to another payphone that seemed quite a ways away. Her way of telling me was so long-winded that I inadvertently started to get impatient. At that moment I spotted a clock in the dim interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. Even if there was a phone right here that I could use, I'd only be able to tell Yuki good night, and the time I had left. On top of that, my destination was a remote payphone, which I didn't know the exact distance to. If I was of normal state of mind, deciding to give up the phone today would probably be the natural thought process. But at the moment, I had become somewhat stubborn for some reason. Unable to use the phone in the hospital, coming out here, and still being unable to use one. There was no mistaking that I had become quite insistent on using a phone. Thank you very much. I'll try looking for that phone booth. Using her offer to draw me a map, I left the tobacco shop. According to the old lady, even the phone booth was quite far away. It'd be easy to find. If I just followed this road straight down, I'd eventually find it. Sandals flapping as I ran, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I'll admit that I'm quite steadfast about calling Yuki, but there were days when I was tired or busy when I wouldn't call her. Even today, my entire body was covered with injuries, and I was dead tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. It wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days I didn't call her. But having twice been foiled trying to call her, had I become hot-headed about it? Was I like a dog who had been told to stay with a piece of food dangled in my face? What am I doing? Even so, I couldn't quite quell the unease feeling sitting in the pit of my stomach. It was like that with the hospital phone, and the same with the one in the tobacco shop. Both cords were definitely not severed from being frayed from long years of use. The clean cuts indicated that someone had taken something sharp and deliberately cut them. But who, and for what reason? The more I thought about it, the uneasier I felt, so I tried to push the thought aside. How much had I run so far? The scenery around me was no longer that of a shopping district, with residential buildings scattering around about the lonely road. The surroundings had already grown dark. I was blatantly out too far for a quick phone call. It was quite obvious that I was far removed from the hospital. I recalled the clock I saw at the tobacco shop. It might almost be time. I had to run for quite a bit, so my breathing had grown quite ragged. If I just wanted to hear Yuki's voice, I should have just thrown away my reservations and borrowed the phone in the office. I regretted it a little. Well then, was it about time to give up? Just when I thought that, I saw the light in front of me. I finally found it. It was a phone booth. It seemed that the light in the phone booth had recently been changed, and showed with a vivid white light. Although in the gloom of Hinamizawa it was nothing more than a gathering spot for moths, but in any case I had finally found it. When my hand touched the door of the phone booth, I realized I was breathing and sweating heavily. I didn't know what time it was right now, but even if it was just for a moment, I might be able to get in touch with Yuki. Since I had spent all this effort getting here, turning back without even giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of unease washed over me. I was worried that this phone cord might be severed as well. How was the cord in this phone booth? Squatting down, I followed the bundle of cables as they ran along the corner in the ceiling. At a glance, nothing was out of the ordinary. I ran my fingers as far along the line to check it out. The only thing they found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wondered if it was popular in Hinamizawa to cut the cords of payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. It might be prudent to talk to Oshi about this later. Even if it was nothing more than a prank, it was still vandalism of public property. In any case, this one is fine, this time. Pulling out a coin from my pocket in one hand, I picked up the receiver with the other. But this time, before the receiver even reached my ear, I felt something was off. The receiver was light. It was more than a slightly unpleasant feeling. It felt almost sickening. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver in my hand with a measure of reluctance. What the hell is this? Coiled cord that connected to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. It was all I could do to restrain myself as a raw, unpleasant feeling worked its way up in the small of my back. It was a type of dread. At that moment, I heard the crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off the glass walls of the booth, leaving me unable to see outside the darkness. I steeled myself and stepped out of the phone booth. The inside of the booth was lit with a strong light, which might have made it warmer in there. Just stepping outside, I could feel a chill wash over me. And there was the silhouette of a person. A small silhouette. The long hair of that silhouette was blown about by the cold breeze. Injured people shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. Somewhere in my head I knew who this girl was. I didn't have any basis for it, but I knew that she was that girl. Right, Akasaka? She, Rikafudre, said that almost like it was a warning. Did you do this to the phone cord? The expression remained unchanged, and my question was left unanswered. In other words, no response. Regardless, I felt she had affirmed my suspicions. Why would you do something like this? Why? The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem very afraid. There's nothing that can be done. Huh? I interpreted her words as meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital, but thinking about it, that would have been a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? I could take that she had said to have any other meaning. She just stood there, like a mannequin, not even moving an inch, almost to the point that if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling through her long hair, the illusion that time had stopped. I know very well that you think I'm disgusting, Akasaka. Huh? No, that's not true. My denial comes out almost like a bad piece composed for a poetry slam, but her words were right on the mark. I had always felt something ominous and uncanny about her, ever since her strange sweats at the shrine. She hadn't noticed my expression was contrary to my words, seeming laughing at the gap between them. Akasaka, you coward. I'm not a coward. Being laughed at by the small child didn't sit well with me, so I said that. Even if you find another phone, it's too late. That's right. Didn't even have to say it. I was absolutely too late. I might have already missed calling hours even by the time I reached this pay booth. I was too late. I had no option but to give up for today. Once I decided that, my unhealthy obsession with phones suddenly faded. Even I thought that it was strange that I was that obsessed. That strange obsession now gone, I began to laugh at how hopeless I was. I mean, just look at what I was wearing. It wasn't normal. A hospital gown and sandals, my head wrapped in bandages, and my body completely soaked in sweat. It was a wonder that the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. With wanting to hear Yuki's voice as my motive, I was trapezed around town the entire evening. I didn't know whether to call it the follies of youth or simply pain and embarrassment. In any case, it was all I could do but to laugh at myself. Now, there's nothing left for Akasaka to do tonight. You're right. There's nothing. I'll just quietly return to the hospital. That's fine. Do you know the way? I hope I do. She waved her little hand as I began to head back the way I came. She began to follow alongside me. Looking at her face, I could see that she wore a mischievous smile, as if she was extremely interested in whether or not I would get lost. Is Rekachan's house also this way? It is. Won't your parents be mad that you're walking around alone at this hour? Not really. My parents are busy today, so they probably forgot about me. Even then, it's best that you head on home, and they'll definitely be angry. Even if they are, it's much more interesting to talk with Akasaka, so I'm fine. She said that with a face free from worry as she looked up at me once more and smiled. When she showed me that smile, the eerie feeling surrounding her faded, but even then she was still as mysterious to me as ever. We arrived at the corner I had turned at earlier, but it was much darker than before, and with the point of view changed on the return trip, I wasn't very confident this was actually the corner I had turned on. There's no mistake, it had to be this corner. As I began to move my feet again, the girl grabbed onto my clothes. Isn't Akasaka-san going back to the hospital? Of course, at least I intend to. Am I going the wrong way? A short moment of silence. Eventually, still holding on my clothes, she began to walk. It was the beginning of the walk to the hospital this mysterious girl would take me on. Quiet whispers of, I'm worried, why is Rika leading me? The person who was running around cutting all the phone cords was you, wasn't it, Rekachan? You shouldn't do that anymore. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Really? She tried to play dumb, but it was written all over her face. Nipa! It was obvious she was trying to laugh it off, but that adorable smile of hers just made me want to forgive her. I'm going to be a horrible father, aren't I? That momentary lapse in tension was erased by her next words. It's good that they found the grandson safe and sound. Unable to respond right away, I sunk into silence. I'd already learned this from Sato-san's information, didn't I? This girl, no, this entire village knew everything since the moment I set foot in here. I considered playing dumb, but in the end I chose not to. With everything being known already, there was no point in me feigning ignorance. Somehow. That's great. Now you can go back to Tokyo. Thank you. Are your injuries bad, Akasaka? Don't know. I haven't heard anything from the doctor yet, so I don't know if they are or not. Huh? Come to think of it, I vaguely remember being told to lie down and take it easy for at least 24 hours. Did that mean bed rest? The wounded shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. People shouldn't be cutting phone cords. Meep. I have no idea what you're talking about. Then I don't know what you're talking about either. As we played down with each other, we both laughed at the same time. If somebody saw us laughing at each other like this, it'd probably bring a smile to their lips. The chances of Akasaka leaving this village alive weren't very high. I don't want Akasaka to die, so I'm glad you're leaving the village alive. Rekachan, did you know what I was, right from the beginning? She said nothing, but gave a firm nod. Well then, I think you know this, but we're probably somewhat of an enemy to the people in this village, I would think. But you still gave me lots of warnings. That's right. She said at that time, she wouldn't warn somebody that she was okay with dying. She definitely said something like that. Then I should probably be thanking you. You probably should. I'm your savior. Saying that, she puffed up her chest proudly. She said it jokingly, but the meaning behind those words was quite heavy. It was because whether I lived or died was the decision that might have been made in place unbeknownst to me. She said those words in such an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence as their weight to settle in. I'd been to this place before. The Defense Alliance's office was there. This is the stone steps leading up to the Furude Shrine. When I passed by before, I was so focused on finding a phone booth, I hadn't realized where I was. If I recall correctly, this shrine is Rekachan's house, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Looking up at the shrine grounds, it was brightly lit and energetic voices could be heard. What was going on?
There's a festival today.
A festival?
The best and only festival at Hinamazawa, the Watanagashi Festival.
Watanagashi? Cotton? Drifting?
Just knowing the name is boring. Do you want to take a look?
She asked bluntly. But seeing that I looked interested, she climbed up a couple of steps and motioned for me to come. I was only going to go back and sleep anyways. If I had nothing else to do, it might not be a bad idea to go with her on a little detour. I'm still in my hospital gown! In the hostile territory that was this village, I didn't know what would happen if I ventured down a side road without Oshi. Even though I thought the village like that, when I was with this girl, I forgot all about it. In any case, without anything to back it up, I felt that as long as I was with her, none of the ill will from the village would befall me. That's why, even though I knew my cover was blown, I strangely had no qualms about setting foot in the heart of the Onigofuchi Defense Alliance's territory. Climbing up the grounds of the shrine, I could see that there were about 3 pavilions set up, with meeting tables and folding chairs. The old folks from the village, no, the executives of the Defense Alliance, were already quite drunkenly sharing another round of drinks. I can only see it was as people of the village council, drinking while enjoying the evening air. At the very least, it was certainly quite different than any festival I'd seen.
See? It's quite a boring festival, isn't it?
Certainly doesn't look like a festival.
It's a festival that happened since long ago, but as you can see, it's not like it used to be.
As if to chide the old folks, she said that while looking at them with an exasperated expression. You really couldn't call this a festival anymore. It's just a bunch of neighbors getting together to drink under the guise of a festival. I feel sorry for the deity being celebrated here.
Give this sorry excuse of a festival 5 or 6 years, and then everybody in the village will start coming. The ceremony will also be done properly, and it'll be a respectable festival again.
When she said that with not so much wistful thinking as it was telling a future that had already been determined. She wasn't even predicting it. It was like she was simply reporting the results. That's how it sounded. Even though it was a baseless speculation, the way she said it wouldn't let me interject. It's the same way she talked when she changed. While I struggled, there's an L missing! To find the words to reply to her, she wandered over to the other side of the grounds, not minding me at all. Not in a state where I could afford to be left behind, I hurriedly followed after her. I'm still in a hospital gown and sandals! Passing through a crops of pine trees, a strong and cool breeze ruffled my hair. There, from that one evening, was the splendid observation platform the girl had shown me. It had grown completely dark. The modest lights littered across the nightscape were providing a different kind of scenery.
Looking at it like this village seems tranquil.
She said that with an indifferent look on her face. Just the other day, you said that this village definitely wouldn't be submerged by the dam, didn't you? She didn't reply, seeming relishing in the fact of the wind blowing through her hair. Didn't that mean, at some point in time, the minister had already complied with the demands? She spun around, her gaze meeting mine. She said nothing. She spoke nothing that would either confirm or deny what I had just said. This case will probably remain shrouded in darkness. Headquarters probably doesn't want trouble from the scandal with the minister breaking out.
There's no mistake that they threatened to kill the grandchild.
The negotiations with the minister were successful, and the grandson was released.
The one who saved the grandson was you.
I wonder about that. Discovery of the wallet that started this chain of events. That alone was almost too convenient, I'd think. Ever since the moment that wallet was discovered, I felt something was odd. Oshi said it as well. That the Sonozaki family had given the order to release the hostage. Meaning that our little manhunt was a farce to begin with. Come to think of it, I was punched, kicked, and had a gun pointed at me. I felt like they put up quite a fight, but that might have been all part of a good performance. Once the negotiations were successful, they couldn't just say, "Here you go," and return the minister's grandson right to his doorstep. They knew that public safety had realized that this was a kidnapping case, and were moving in on it. That's why, due to the actions of public safety, the grandson was able to be rescued safely. So the minister didn't give in to any unreasonable demands. That type of performance was necessary.
I don't know about these difficult things.
Likewise. Even for me, I couldn't make much sense of it. But there's one thing I can be certain of. It's just as you said. This village won't be submerged. The dam project will soon be over. That wasn't something an officer of the law should be saying, but I naturally let those words slip from my mouth. This village may have stirred up all sorts of trouble, but that was because they were protecting their homes. If someone just decided by themselves that I had to leave the house I was used to living in, I would resent them as well. On top of that, it wasn't like a place like mine where I just happened to be renting it, but a place where their families had lived for generations. It might be ignorant to call their desperate resistance an overreaction. I might not really be qualified to criticize politics or bureaucracy, but deliberately building a dam on land where it is loved by its residents wasn't something I could get behind.
Still, aren't you glad?
Why would that be?
At the very least, that this peace
Will return to this village. Even though the minister promised to use this considerable influence to cancel the project, it would probably take more than a few months before it would be completely scrapped. At the very least, it'd probably take 1 or 2 years. For the villagers to officially hear that their village wasn't going to be submerged at the bottom of a dam was still a ways away. But there was no mistake that the promise of peace returning to the village was there. It turned out, from the beginning to the end, that it had already all been decided. Just as the girl had said, it was decided. There wasn't really a need for me to come here in the first place. There was absolutely no need for me to come here, an aggravated and unpleasant situation. If I had never come here then, the grandson's release might have been done in a more amicable manner. Peace in this village. When I nodded, she laughed as if to admonish me, but her face remained indifferent, expressionless. And then her eyes narrowed slightly as she snickered. Even though every year from now on something bloody will occur? Rekachan, what are you talking about? As the wind blew her hair about the girl, as if taking pleasure in that I was the only one who didn't know, continued to snicker as she looked at my face for a while. You see, in a few years, I'll be killed. Huh? Backlit by the mood, it was hard to tell if her expression had been cast in shadow, smiling, amused, or resigned. You are? Why? It's a very unpleasant thing, though. It almost probably has been decided already. Decided already? Who would decide that sort of thing?
I'd like to know that as well.
Turning back to face me, she showed me a resolute expression for the first time, and after staring into my eyes for a moment, she turned back to gaze at the scenery before she spoke her next words.
There's a lot of people who have no regard for human life.
Even if I tell you this, it might not change anything, though. But if you want to erase the specter of death, sometimes, like with the reflection of the moon on the water, all you have to do is throw a small stone. I had no idea what she was trying to say. It's just, I had to listen to every word with my body and soul, at least. That's what I thought. This day next year, yes, June 1979, on this day, the foreman of the dam construction project will be killed. What? For a moment I couldn't comprehend what she was talking about. By the foreman, did she mean that gruff old man I played mahjong with? But be killed? What makes you think? She didn't answer, but she had the same expression on her face as she did when she declared the dam project would go away. That wasn't the face of someone making a forecast or a prediction. It was something that had already decided. No. It was as if she had already reported the results. That sort of expression. After being killed in a gruesome manner, the body will be torn apart and disposed of. Murdered and dismembered. The next year, in June of 1980, on this day, Sadako's parents will be pushed to their deaths. Sadako? It's the first time I heard that name, but I didn't have the courage to interrupt the girl's story. It might have been an accident, an unfortunate accident. The girl smiled faintly, but she wasn't exactly encouraging me to smile along with the lifeless look in her eyes. And then the year after that, this day in June of 1981, my parents will be killed. And then the year after that, in the June of 1982, Sadako's abusive aunt will have her head split open and die. And then the year after that, this day in the June of 1983, possibly a few days afterwards, I will be killed. If all the deaths are preordained, then the last one would be all according to plan. But then whose plan would it be? This village is full of murderers and people who have no regard for human life. It'd be fine to believe that all the deaths up until 1982 would be the work of somebody in the village. It'd be fine to believe that all the deaths that would occur were at the discretion of those who controlled the village, but that didn't explain what would happen in 1983. There's no way the last death would fit into anybody's plans. They had no regard for human life. They would use every means at their disposal to meet their goal, but their goals were at odds with the last death. That's why the last death was unrelated to them. But that last death would definitely, most likely, probably, without question, happen. Probably, definitely, I dare say. The last death would be a merciful one. A handkerchief or something being placed over their mouth, making them lose consciousness, never to wake up again. Exactly whose plan was that? I want to live happily. That's my only wish. Surrounded by my precious friends, spending our days enjoyably. Only that. I don't want to wish for anything more than that. Rekachan, I don't want to die. The girl, stoic as ever, let those last words slip in the end. Yeah, but they're only spoilers if you know what the spoilers are. Eventually, we were discovered by some drunks. The girl, as well as I, were dragged back to the festivities. Everybody was completely drunk, so when they saw my head completely wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Well, certainly, if I was in good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it must not be that serious. The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. Her expression was adorable, nothing like the one from just before, predicting her own death and whispering that she didn't want to die. Having said that, having a silly and lively conversation like this, it was hard to believe that these people were the core of an extremist resistance group. Even if it was the shell of its former self, it was a festival where people in the village gathered, so that 20-some-odd folk here have included some of the village executives and other important members. Among those, there was no doubt there were the members that were at the Sonozaki Family Council in attendance, meaning if they had never met face-to-face before, that these people here, who knew my identity, in a small village like this, they knew the faces of all the villagers that lived here. That's why, without even saying anything, it soon became obvious that I was an outsider. But they actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions about Tokyo, drinking while musing on the faint relationship the city had with the villagers, and empathizing with the rather meager environment. The confidential talks with the minister were finished. His grandson was in police custody. Everything was over. I might not be able to put in another perilous situation. To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, there was no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. The next time I visited this village, would it return to being a tranquil and beautiful place? If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her again. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was the middle of the night. The girl had at some point disappeared. It seemed that her parents had told her to go home and sleep when she let out a large yawn. The old folks, who had absolutely no remorse for making an injured person hang out with them, told me as much as they laughed. I was just there drinking, so I had thought to help a bit with cleaning up. But my help was refused on the grounds that I was a guest. On top of that, they had a car prepared to take me back to the hospital. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot of the hospital. The front door of the hospital was naturally locked at this hour. I wandered around bewildered, searching for a back entrance until someone on night duty found me and let me inside. Where were you this late at night? Dr. Idiot was worried, you know. Sorry for the trouble. I was held up by the people having a festival at the shrine. Oh, they did something about everybody at the town council getting together for a drink. My condolences. Are your wounds alright? They're throbbing a bit. That's probably because of the alcohol, I think. Oh, that's right. The detective that was with you wanted to get in touch. Oops. I kept Oshi-san waiting. I glanced at the clock. No matter how you looked at it, it was way too late to call him now. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. I returned back to the hospital room and slept in the bed that was still unmade from the time I went outside. Oh, that's no good. I have to turn off the lights. In my weariness, I cut the cord, powering my body, lulling me into the deep sleep. Well, that's nice. That was nice. Got to hang out with some villagers, got to drink, got to hear Rika say some very sad things, and you want to just give her a hug. Oh man! Tips! New tips! Oh man! Tips! Prophecy at the beginning. It's a picture of a fucking gun! Also, that was an incredibly short chapter. Mother's Diary. There was something I didn't like about my child. I first realized it when I started writing these things down. They never warn you about any books about raising children. But they aren't just a plaything. If they aren't able to feel loved, even when they aren't doing exactly as their parents want them to, then those parents are failures. This wasn't something like that, though. How can I say it? It's probably hard to express with mere words. I just want my child to be average. As long as they weren't falling behind, there wasn't any need for them to excel at something. As long as they acted appropriately for their age, I would have been fine with it. But my child has been different ever since kindergarten. While the child was in her class, we're running around in excitement to the field trip the next day. She only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the other kids broke the equipment for the athletics festival and were apologizing fervently, she only wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. When the teacher was reading a fun picture book, only she wasn't smiling. Even if they all got to eat a delicious bento, only she wasn't happy. If it was only this, it would still be in the realm of understanding. However, what I don't understand is that if the aforementioned situations happened again, they'd now act in a manner befitting their age. I don't understand the principle behind that as a parent. Why were they indifferent about that field trip, but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about the picture book, but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about that bento, but happy about this one? The former and the latter in each situation seemed exactly the same to me. There were even times when I thought the former one was better. I don't understand the child's feelings. During parent-teacher meetings, the teacher always says the same thing. I would always respond that I don't understand my own child, and we would mope together. My husband, always the optimist, once said that a young child's feelings were different from an adult's, so if there was something we didn't understand, we shouldn't worry about it. I lament his lack of urgency. One day, when I was in a good mood, I took the effort to prepare a menu that my child would enjoy, but she only smiled with a vague expression of disinterest. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. On a day when the weather was nice, the laundry I had just hung up to dry was blown by a large gust of wind, causing the entire line to fall down. But she, watching me try to pick up the laundry in a panic, stood there laughing. The attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. I think the same sort of thing happened countless times. Before I knew it, my child was only able to look at me with an indifferent expression on her face. I regret the fact that I had been a bad mother. Thinking that I should gain her trust, I thought to get back little by little with some light interactions, seeing her do some sort of craft work on a veranda. On the veranda, I called out to her. "These past few days have been nice and sunny. The air feels nice, doesn't it?" That child, with that indifferent look on her face, that I hated so much, looked at me for a moment, then without a word returned to immersing herself in her craft work. Up until now, I would have hit her on the head just for that. I held myself back. "What are you making? Is it a doll?" "A weather charm." The child was using inserts from the newspaper to deftly make some weather charms. The forecast hadn't called for rain, but this child in her own way was praying that these sunny days would continue. Being able to understand my own child for the first time in a while, I couldn't hide my own happiness. Bringing out a ball of yarn, I began to hang my child's cute weather charms from the eaves of the house. "It's no good, Rika. The heads are too heavy, you see? They'll become reverse weather charms now. If they're like this, they'll call the rain instead of the sun." When I started to take them down, my child tugged at the hem of my shirt as if to stop me. "That's because I made them to be upside down. They're fine." "But, Rika, if they're upside down, there won't be charms that call for sunny days, you know." "I was making a charm for it to rain, so they're fine." I desperately suppressed the emotions welling up inside me, trying desperately to understand my child. "Oh, I see. The morning glories in the garden were starting to get a little wilted from all the sun, so you want some rain, right?" The child turned to me with an expression that I hated the most. "I got bored of the clear weather. Don't understand. I just can't understand that child." During the family council, she buried herself under Onryu's futon again. Onryu-san dotes on her unwaveringly. No matter whatever insolence my child commits, she doesn't mind. It's almost as though my child is a kitten or something. Onryu dotes on her exactly like you would with a kitten. As her mother, I chided her for doing that. Until Onryu had said 3 times that it was fine, I chided her as a formality. Of course, she never lends an ear to any of my chidings. Knowing that Onryu-san's standing was far above mine, she behaves like that. I don't like the cunning that's unbefitting of her age either. In any case, not only Onryu-san, but the rest of the old folk in the village spoil her too much. One day I was surprised. By chance, on the way from some shopping, I saw her by herself just outside a candy shop. My own child suddenly grabbed a snack, opened the package right there, and started eating it. She didn't make any attempt to pay for it. She didn't even think of looking around. It didn't even feel like she was shoplifting, more like she was brazenly eating snacks that were offered to her. When I began to admonish my child, the elderly shop owner appeared and covered for her. The owner gave the ridiculous excuse that he said it was okay for that child to eat any of the snacks out of the entrance, so it was fine. When I tried to pay for the snacks that my child had eaten, the owner refused my money. During that exchange, more old folks had suddenly gathered around, and began to feel like I was the one in the wrong. The elderly people all put their hands together reverently in front of my child and repeatedly voiced their respects. I was born in the Fude family, so it wasn't like I didn't know what she was being treated specially. When I was still young, it was something I had heard often from my grandmother. If by chance the child I gave birth to was a girl, that child would be a living incarnation of Otoshiro-sama. All the older folk believe that she's a living incarnation of Otoshiro-sama, and she's spoiled her rotten. Not only did they spoil her, but they even told her that she was a living incarnation of Otoshiro-sama, that she had a divine power, and threw all sorts of strange folk tales her way. So she may have begun to believe herself that she was a spectral existence. I ran around and told everyone it wasn't good for her upbringing, so to stop telling her all these strange things. But there was no unrooting the elderly people's deep-seated superstitions. I told my child not to listen to them, but it ended up being that she stopped listening to me. Between all the old folks in the village who would dote on her, and myself, who only scolded her, there was no wonder who she would listen to. There was no mistaking that the reason she had become strange was because of the elderly villagers. There was no doubt that they had shoved her full of strange folk tales and superstitions since she was young. If it wasn't for that, there'd no doubt my child would be cute and normal. You should still love your child despite them being strange. You shouldn't treat them and admonish them for being who they are. One Sunday parent-teacher day, there was a cooking class and my child was making curry rice with a practiced hand. While the other children her age were awkwardly using their kitchen knives, that child was wielding hers deftly. The teacher approached me with a smile on her face, saying it must be the result of learning it at home. I managed to play it off with a vague smile and nod in response. That was because I had never once taught my child how to make curry rice. Even then she was peeling vegetables with a practiced hand, adding them into the pot in order of which took longer to cook. For a normal parent, they might unintentionally clap their hands together, happy at their child's actions. But in my case it was different. There was no mistaking that somebody had taught her how to make curry rice when I wasn't taking care of her. Thinking of that, I quietly fell into an unpleasant mood. When I asked, it seemed she should also sew and do the laundry. I had never taught her how to do those things, and again, never saw her do it around the house, be it cooking or sewing or the laundry. Again, that was probably because the elderly villagers taught her all sorts of rubbish when I wasn't looking. Not only that, they probably taught her all sorts of strange superstitions, trying to prop her up as the living incarnation of Oroshiro-sama. I said as much to my husband, suggesting that we should keep our child away from the elderly folk. My husband, who was in the position of being the head priest of the Fude Shrine, had little power against the elderly who supported it. He took the rather uncommitted stance of saying that as long as she was being doted upon, wasn't it fine? I argued against that she was our child, and she'd be a completely normal girl. That what the elderly were expecting, that she was the living incarnation of Oroshiro-sama, was simply odd. The elderly villagers believed that child had divine powers. We would discuss the weather of the following day, but there wouldn't be many times when I left the house with an umbrella and come back soaking wet. Rather than having clairvoyance, it was just second-hand knowledge of her watching the news all the time. The things that she knew that she shouldn't have known were just the result of people who were trying to indoctrinate her, and the people who were gossiping getting together in the village. However, there certainly were days where everyone thought it was going to be sunny all day, and that child would stubbornly not go out without an umbrella. It would occasionally rain, and in the end we would be saved. There might also be times when Rika knew of major accidents in foreign countries faster than the news did. I thought that she must have heard it break over the radio or something, knowing things she shouldn't have. Something like that. It was in front of me right now, wasn't it? That child was making curry rice when there shouldn't be anybody who taught her how to. No, that couldn't possibly be the case. Someone had taught her, indoctrinated her. When I wasn't taking care of her, somebody had indoctrinated Rika with something. Fude-san's curry is absolutely splendid. I'll give it a gold star. Nipa. Where did you learn to cook, Fude-san? At home? Yes, at home. The other parents in attendance were impressed. Lies. All lies. I didn't teach her anything. Who was it? Who was it? Who was the person who had completely indoctrinated my child? She was my normal, average daughter, not the living incarnation of Oroshiro-sama. Detective! Which means this chapter is the last one. Else that wouldn't come up. So this one only has 6 chapters, huh? And then the party. Well, we'll be able to finish it tonight then. Midsummer 1985. Ah, so we've jumped back forward in time. Sir, we're preparing to land. Excuse me, but will you please fasten your seatbelt? It seemed I had fallen fast asleep inside the plane. I was finally awoken from my slumber by a stewardess. I had only carry-on luggage on top of it being a domestic flight, so the time between disembarking and entering the lobby was almost non-existent. Arriving at the lobby, I glanced around looking for Oshi, and when met with a familiar gruff voice calling out to me. Akasaka-san! Nah, how many years has it been? It's been a while, hasn't it? Oshi-san, it's really been a long time. Oshi clapped his hands down on my shoulders, celebrating our reunion. Akasaka-san, you're looking pretty good. You look like a bona fide frontline investigator now. You're looking quite dapper yourself. Your posture seems a lot better. Is the ballroom dancing paying off? You should give it a try while you're still young. You'd be a hit with the ladies. A real babe magnet. Oshi had retired and moved to Sapporo, and, of all things, he had started taking ballroom dancing lessons. He had apparently gotten really into it, and had decided to spend the rest of his new life devoted to that hobby. He was aiming to get his instructor's qualifications before he hit 80, and live out his old age dandily. I let myself into Oshi's car, and we headed out towards the hot spring inn. I had originally intended to crash at Oshi's place, but Oshi was quite upset that his house wasn't as suitable for that, so it came to this. At the inn, we relaxed while soaking in the hot springs, reminiscing about the time we played mahjong together in Himatsubushi-hen. Seeing that to celebrate our reunion, Oshi had looked for people who could play, but unable to find a suitable candidate, we had to give up on putting together a table. As we drank together, we excitedly recounted our exploits during that final manhunt. Did they end up catching those two guys? Nope! In the end, the search team never found them. They were probably hidden by the villagers, then sent overseas or somewhere far away, lay low for a bit. It's kind of odd to see Oshi in a yukata. Oshi's-san, if you remember correctly, you managed to grab one of their guns, didn't you? Did you learn anything from that? It was a Chinese-made military pistol. Probably one of the ones the gangs in Kansai managed to smuggle in a ton of. We tried to get a match for the rifling, but it didn't show up in any other cases. How about on your end? After that I was removed from the front line, so I don't know much. In the end, it seems like everything was settled under the veil of secrecy. Nah. Oshi smiled wryly as he sipped his chilled drink. What happened after that? Sure was tough, huh? Be 7 years now. Yeah. We had the memorial service a few days ago. I've become estranged with my father-in-law lately, so it was rough getting everything ready. Nah. That must have been a lot of work. It was then that the hostess brought in extra drinks that we had ordered before. While the bottles of beer clanked as she brought them in, we halted our conversation. What Oshi meant when he said it must have been tough. Thinking about that was still hard. But time had healed the wound. It was the day after, when I phoned Oshi to apologize. When I did, Oshi immediately handed the phone over to one of his colleagues who happened to be there. Not only was I injured in the brawl with the suspects, but I had disappeared to drink late into the night without leaving any sort of contact information, so I thought he'd definitely be mad. However, all he said was that something he couldn't talk about over the phone, and that I should come to the station as soon as possible. At the time, I could only think that he must have been really pissed off. To be fair, I would kind of be upset, but when I arrived at the station, he said this. It seems your wife was involved in an accident. Having no idea what happened, I borrowed the phone to contact the hospital Yukio was staying at. After being given the runaround several times, I was finally able to talk to someone in charge. After mincing words for quite some time, they told me this. Yuki Akasaka was killed in an accident. The world became a blur as I sat there dumbfounded. Yuki's death was unbelievably abrupt, unbelievably sudden. I could have understood if there was some kind of problem during the birth, but Yuki's death wasn't anything like that. On the stairs, on the way up to the roof, she just happened to slip and fall. She just happened to fall in an unfortunate place, at an unfortunate angle. That was it. Wanting to blame Yuki's death on somebody, I began to think it was the act of revenge by the Defense Alliance, that they killed my wife and made it look like an accident. When I learned that I flew back to Tokyo, however, it was much more cruel than that. Yuki had a habit of going up on the roof to cool off in the evening. There was an elevator up to the 7th floor, but from there you had to take the stairs to get to the roof. Even late in her pregnancy, when the evening came, she would always head up there. Her father had always said for her not to push herself, but Yuki insisted that until the time she had no choice but to stay in bed, she'd be allowed to do as she wished. However, I had never once seen Yuki go up to the roof. I only heard that from her father and the nurses. That was because whenever I visited her, she'd spend that time with me instead. I heard the reason why Yuki went up on the roof from the nurse that she'd become friendly with. She had said that her husband was away in business a lot of the time, and that whenever he called, she was able to cheer him up and give him courage. But when he didn't call, she couldn't do that. Her husband might put on a show of bravado, but in reality he grew lonesome pathetically fast. She's probably just the same. Whenever he left for business, not clear when he'd come back, she felt very lonely. Whenever she cheered him up, she was actually cheering herself up as well. That's why, whenever he went far away for an important job, on the evenings he didn't call. At the very least, she felt that standing underneath the same sky, her feelings would reach him. At that moment, I remember the words that girl had told me. that it was best that I go back to Tokyo right away. Otherwise there would be something I'd regret horribly. Yes, that's it. Because I was away on business that day, Yuki had headed up to the roof. Had I known that this would have been the result, I'd done as the girl had said and dropped everything to head back to Tokyo. I might have been with Yuki on the day she died. If I was with her, she wouldn't have gone up to the roof. The day my wife died was on the evening of the third day of my trip. Yes, it was right before the time I had the sudden urge to hear Yuki's voice and ran around the village trying to find a phone. The girl had gone around and cut all the phone cords. If she hadn't, and I had made that call, I would have undoubtedly learned of Yuki's death at that time and collapsed in tears. Of course, even though the cords were cut, it only put me off learning of Yuki's death by that one evening. In the end, I had learned it the next morning. However, when I managed to put my emotions in order, I realized it was that girl's small token of consideration. That's the first I heard about that. Yeah, it's the first time I've talked about it. Could have been a coincidence. She doesn't have any special powers or anything. Aren't you the one who told me, Oshi-san? That she might be the reincarnation of the god called Oroshiro-sama? Well, yeah. The old folks in the village believed that Rika Furure had divine powers. Divine powers? Though she had originally said it was a kind of joke, but realizing I was serious, he slumped his shoulders. I don't know if it's the truth or not. They said that she did things like prophesize the future, talk about things that she had no way of knowing, that she was clairvoyant, that it was a divine revelation. Well, all sorts of things. Of course, they couldn't give specific examples, though. Nah. She prophesied Yuki's accident. Or she tried to laugh it off, but out of respect to my deceased wife, he kept it restrained. Does that mean an active and capable investigator of the Metropolitan Police Department believes in divine powers and curses? Having him say it so bluntly, I couldn't respond. Of course, I had no intention of believing such odd things, but he could only say that because he didn't know what I did. Since I met that other girl, who both was and wasn't Rika Furure, I couldn't deny the existence of any otherworldly entity. Of course, I can't deny that it might not have been presidents, but rather a warning. Not presidents, but a warning. If what the girl had said was a warning about Yuki's accident, then things would have been much easier to understand. Basically, the line of thinking was that it was a threat, because I didn't want to go back to Tokyo. My wife was killed in an accident that made it look like... killed in a way that looked like an accident. Not satisfied with the investigation on your wife's accident? Of course, I suspected foul play. I pored over the results and even carried out my own personal investigation. There weren't any witnesses to Yuki's fall. There was a possibility that somebody had hidden, waiting to push Yuki down the stairs. However, the cleaning ladies frequently did the roof to hang laundry. The security cameras on each floor hadn't recorded anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't anything set up on the stairs, and I was unable to find anything suspicious. In the end, even after my personal investigation, I can't think of anything else happening other than a simple accident. Well, of course, there are the guys that took the minister's grandson hostage. It wouldn't be impossible for them to push a lone pregnant woman down the stairs without leaving any evidence. Osh's expression had completely sobered up. They murdered your wife. When Yuki died, I thought that as well. More precisely, I wanted to blame somebody, so I created the most viable scapegoat. But without any clear evidence, that violent notion faded along with the wounds in my heart. Did that girl know beforehand about my wife's death and was threatening me? Or did she prophesize that death and was offering me a road to salvation? If I had to choose between the two, I would tend towards the latter. Nah. Oshi smiled slightly in disbelief as he poured another beer from his bottle. Then if I may? If what you say is true, then Rika Furure was a prophet who knew the future. So, why didn't she predict that disaster? She knew that the grass eruption was going to happen. Why did she remain silent? Even a few hours beforehand would have been enough. If the village knew, then most of the people would have escaped without dying. It was near the end of June 1983. Volcanic gas from the Onigafucha swamp erupted and hit the village in the middle of the night. It was an unprecedented disaster where the whole populace was wiped out. It caused a wave of panic about volcanic gas across the country, causing people to overreact over a report of odd smells. I hadn't heard of the blockade on the Hinamizawa area being lifted, so it still should be condoned off. It's my turn to be lost for a response. Well, if Rika Furure, the reincarnation of Oshiro-sama, was killed, and the village might have incurred the god's wrath, making him call forth the miasma from the swamp to kill everyone. That's the explanation what the survivors are whispering about. Sorry, Oshi-san, did you just say she was killed? Yeah. Well, I don't think it would be a problem if I told you. When I saw the news about the gas disaster, I remembered that girl, and I found out her name was on the list of victims. That's why at the time I thought her own death had predicted was due to the gas. It was after that I learned from the tabloids the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa during the 5 years leading up to the disaster that became known as the Curse of Otoshiro-sama. And that string of mysterious deaths lined up exactly with what the girl had predicted, so I'd always thought to talk to Oshi about it, as he had been involved in the investigation. That's right. That was the reason for our reunion. But right now, Oshi had said, Rika Fudere didn't die in the disaster, but was killed? Can I ask you about the last year of the curse? I may be retired, but I still have to keep things confidential, you know? Excuse me, madam, do you have anything cold that's brewed locally? High grade, if there is. I'll leave the selection to you. No! Oh my! I didn't mean it that way. Oshi laughed loudly, not wholly unsatisfied, and stopped the hostess to tell her that cheap booze was fine. I know as much as was written in those magazines, but I don't know anything about the curse that happened the year of the disaster, because the entire area around Hinamizawa was sealed off, you see. There wasn't much of an investigation that could be done in the last year of the curse. Even if after several years the quarantine was lifted, the villagers are mostly dead, and the few survivors there were mostly went to stay with relatives, their whereabouts mostly unknown. It's a complete dead end. Oshi seemed to prostrate himself as he stared at the ceiling, as if trying to work out a memory with the rusted cogs in his head, and then he said in a completely sober voice, The magazines made it seem like the curse of the 5th year was that disaster, but the actual curse happened the day of the Watanagashi festival. A photographer by the name of Jiro Tomotake. He was the victim. Oshi gestured about how the victim tore out his own throat with his fingernails as he talked. And the burnt corpse of the woman Tomotake was in a relationship was found in the mountains in Gifu. The Gifu Prefectural Police weren't very cooperative, so I don't know much more about it, though. There were 2 victims in one night? Actually, see, it wasn't just those 2. See, the next day, Kumagai-kun, one of my subordinates, disappeared along with his car in the middle of the investigation. Kumagai was a young detective that was going to be partnered with Oshi after we first met. He was going around the village to question people about the incident with Tomotake. He might have gotten caught up in something. If he was with me, he might have been safe, but even now it still stings. That day, for some reason, it had a real number on my stomach. I had to pass on going around outside. He got too close to the truth. Was made to disappear. That's what I think. Kuma-chan was young and had a promising future up ahead of him, but he still didn't have enough experience on the scene. He wasn't used to dealing with any complications. Oshi lamented the fact that he wasn't with his subordinate that day. And then, the next day, you see, you know him as well, Akasaka-san. You know, Dr. Adie? You remember him. That young doctor from the hospital. I vaguely remember. For whatever reason, he committed suicide with sleeping pills. No suicide note or anything. The autopsy confirmed that it was the sleeping pills. Nothing was in doubt except for the motive. Isn't that hard to make it look like someone died from taking sleeping pills, is it? Any possibility it was a murder? He was single, no prior marriages. Didn't seem like he was going out with anybody in particular. He was the coach of the local junior baseball team, and was on good terms with the villagers. He was liked by everybody. Couldn't find anybody who would want to do him harm. Well, any chances to investigate were ruined by the disaster, though. There's no way to find out anything about him now. Then what about Rika Fudere's death? It was the day of. Around noon, some of the old folks who were visiting the shrine discovered the corpse of Rika Fudere. Murder? Before we continue, we should probably stop eating that squid somen. That bad? Oshi nodded firmly. The corpse was found on the shrine grounds, next to the donation box, although she was probably killed somewhere else. That's because, while she was completely naked, there wasn't any dirt on the soles of her feet. Any sign that it was some sort of sexual assault? According to the autopsy, there wasn't any indication of that. What we know is that she was rendered unconscious by some sort of drug, carried to that place, and had her abdomen sliced wide open. Her organs were deliberately removed and scattered about. Conscious? Then she wasn't cut open after her death? That's horrible. That girl's prediction was right on the mark. I'm pretty sure she was more detailed about the other deaths that led up to her own. For example, I think she said the housewife was beaten to death on the 4th year, had her head split open. That in that case, did she know that her own death would be so terrible? There must have been some moments where she wanted to doubt the validity of her own predictions. But as people died exactly as prophesied, as the years passed, that prophecy would only come closer to fruition. And then, facing the final year, able to struggle against her own destiny, her all-too-young life was snuffed out, and in such a cruel way. Knowing that her days were numbered and unable to fight the tide of events heralding her end, my heart ached at her helplessness. About the way she died, seems it wasn't just anybody's sick taste. What I'm saying is, I have told you before that Hinamizawa used to be home to demons, didn't I? Yeah, I think I remember. The festival in Hinamizawa village, Watanagashi, the cotton drift, seems to stem from drifting of entrails. Seeing that it came from a man-eating demons ripping apart their victims and throwing their organs into the river. In other words, in Hinamizawa, pulling out entrails had some sort of religious meaning. Well, this is according to the old tales in Hinamizawa, you see. To act as an arbiter so that the humans and man-eating demons could live together peacefully, a god known as Oda-Shiro-sama descended from the heavens. If I recall, Rikafude was said to be the living incarnation of that Oda-Shiro-sama, wasn't she? Yeah. So cutting open Rikafude, who was a living god, would be to the village nothing less than absolute sacrilege. Absolute sacrilege. In other words, you mean sacrilege towards Oda-Shiro-sama. The rest you should know, Akasaka-san. The wrath of Oda-Shiro-sama would occur that same night. The great Hinamizawa disaster. The official explanation was that some swamp upstream erupted with toxic volcanic gas, which enveloped the village. The swamp where it erupted was called Onigafuchi Swamp. It was the origin of Hinamizawa's old name, Onigafuchi Village. According to the village lore, the depths of the swamp apparently led to hell, where the man-eating demons came from. That almost seems too perfect. Oh, no, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's also a bit of folklore in the village. If Oda-Shiro-sama became angry, the cauldron of hell would open up, and miasma would flow out, or so they say. To the villagers, hell was at the bottom of the swamp. So basically, the miasma poured out, smothering the village. Yeah. Basically, due to the sacrilegious way that Rikafude, the living incarnation of Oda-Shiro-sama, was killed, the village incurred the wrath of Oda-Shiro-sama in the form of that disaster. That seems to be their explanation. So what you're saying is that the disaster wasn't a natural one? Well, everything does seem to fit together a little too well. If Oda-Shiro-sama's curse doesn't really exist, and everything I really was just a matter of coincidence, I would doubt it. A wry smile formed on Oshi's face as he listened to my absurd take on things. He wore an expression as though, even if it were absurd, there was a time he had thought the same thing as well. In regards to the religious beliefs of the villagers, I suppose there was a more fanatical following among them, and that group created a situation that would incur Oda-Shiro-sama's wrath, and enacted the disaster to make it seem like the truth. Of course, I won't laugh. I've wandered down that line of reasoning more than once myself. However, even though Hinamizawa is a small village, it still has a population over 1,000. To murder that many people in a single night doesn't seem realistic, no matter how you think about it. The gas eruption was believed to have happened around 2 a.m., several hours before dawn. In the short amount of time, going around and killing all the villagers in a way that made it look like poison gas didn't seem feasible at all. The swamp the gas erupted from still has some religious significance, didn't it? If that's the case, then maybe it's something set up in the swamp, something that could be activated whenever a divine verdict was rendered. According to the JSDF, Japanese Self-Defense Force press release, the swamp was declared the source of the eruption. That was after everything was thoroughly looked over by their investigation team. If anything like that was set up, I think they would have found it. It wasn't necessarily have to be put in the swamp itself. Come on, haven't you heard about it? The old story about how, when a faraway spring dried up, the village spring dried up as well? What do you mean by that? Many waterways are connected by underground aquifers. Swamps and springs are only parts that manage to pop up above the surface. So what you're saying is that Onigafuchi Swamp is connected to another swamp or spring? And that's something the villagers rigged up there a long time ago? Something that changes the pressure of Onigafuchi Swamp, causing it to erupt with poisonous gas? Is that what you're getting at? She left heartily, commending the fact that the youngins have a nice flexible way of thinking. That was the former detective in him. Even though it's a hypothesis that he didn't come up with, he still had the presence of mind to not dismiss it right away. That's an interesting theory. If that proves to be true, then it would be unprecedentedly the largest mass murder in the history of Japan. Once the quarantine in Hinamizawa village is lifted, I think it should definitely be investigated. Oshi, do you still have connections with the prefecture office? Somewhat. I'm an honorary advisor for their judo class, so every now I pop by during summer training camps and such. I don't know what the quarantine on Hinamizawa will be lifted, but please let me help. Let me help investigate. Got it. Oshi-san. How do you feel about the string of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa they call the Curse of Odashiro-sama? At the time, the villagers were putting a lot of pressure on the station. The official stance on the things was that the cases were unrelated, that each case was separate, even with its own resolution. That couldn't be, even though it was blatantly obvious that the cases were connected based on the village's religious beliefs. Akasaka-san, we can only say that now because of the rather grandiose way things ended after 5 years. At the time, other coincidental incidents just happened to coincidentally occur on the day of Watanagashi. Just as it would be nice if nothing happened this year kind of feeling to it. Coincidence? The girl predicted everything from the beginning. Girl. Rikafude. That child warned me about all the incidents that would happen afterwards. Akasaka-san. Is that true? Yes. The girl said as much. That the next year the dam foreman would be killed and his corpse dismembered. Not only that, she warned me of all the events that would transpire the following years. Akasaka-san, when she told you all that, what year was it? When I met the girl, I was investigating the kidnapping incident, so June of 1978? The year before the dismemberment murder. Wrinkles formed between Oshi's eyebrows as he closed his eyes and began to digest what I had just told him. Akasaka-san, if you're wrong about Fika Furude knowing the future through some divine medium, this is getting ridiculous. Yep. If you're just trying to shock me, I'm going to be really angry, you know. I'm speaking the truth. Then the script behind the chain of mysterious deaths was written a year before it even started. And just as predicted, Rika Furude was killed. First I thought she meant that she would be killed in the disaster. However, now I know that her death wasn't due to that, but rather an atrocious one at the hands of a murderer. She said she would be killed. At that point in time, she knew more or less how her own death would occur. Then, why didn't Rika Furude not try and run away? Even in her death was already spelled out for her, knowing that she still had a grace period of several years, didn't she? She had plenty of time to try and run away and consult the police. Why did she just accept her death with no resistance? I don't know. Even though Rika Furude was doted upon by the older villagers of the village, you see. After she lost her parents, she had no living relatives, and lived a rather solitary life other than hanging around with some close friends. It might have been that she didn't have any power to fight, or anybody to rely on. She must have tried signaling somebody for help in regards to her own death, though. You know very well that the village and the police weren't very amicable with one another, Akasaka-san. At the very least, I never heard anything about Rika Furude seeking protection from anybody. Or could it be that she simply resigned herself to being a religious sacrifice? It could have been something like that. There's no way that was the case. I spoke decisively. At the time she said it, she definitely said she wanted to live happily. She wanted to spend her time surrounded by her dear friends. She hadn't given up on her life. She had hoped to keep on living. Ah! That moment I became dumbstruck. What's the matter? Akasaka-san? No, it's nothing. I fell into silence. Oshi folded his arms and began murmuring in contemplation again. Eventually he stood up and headed towards the hallway to find the hostess, knowing that he wanted a pen and paper. When Oshi, noisily even though he was just thinking, left, the room immediately fell into a chilled silence. I stood up. It was then I realized that I was drunk enough to be unsteady on my feet. When I slid open the window, a beautiful yet somehow ethereal moon drifted across the night sky. It was just now that I realized she hadn't accepted her own death. She wanted to keep living, happily and joyously. She had said that quite clearly to me, but I was a fool. I hadn't been asking explicitly, so I hadn't realized it. She had made it clear as day that she didn't want to die. Wasn't that her cry for help? She didn't say as much that she wanted help, but even given that it wasn't as though she was looking for salvation. Without any family and unable to trust the police, she instead told somebody without any relation to the village. Somebody from a faraway place. Me. Help me. She had gone around and cut the phone cords. If I had made the phone call and learned of Yuki's death, I probably would have fallen into despair. If I was in that state, even if she was looking for help, her cries would have fallen on deaf ears. That's why, knowing everything, she had cut the phone cords. She wanted even a little time to seek help from me. Oshi just before now had lamented that one of the younger officers got mixed up in a case, having been erased because he wasn't there. I was feeling the same way. If only I was there in June of 1983, I could have protected her. In 1983, it would have been 5 years since the kidnapping took place. Ari was the only daughter Yuki had left me. putting all my youth and passion into my work, honing my wits and courage wrestling with difficult cases. Nothing like my failings during the kidnapping incident would have occurred. I wouldn't have slowed to react in a one-on-one fight. I'd be in that point that I'd jump into foreign mafia-run gambling parlors, that I'd learned to deal with automatic weapons, let alone handguns. I'd grown so much in 1983, I couldn't have even compared to how I was in 1978. That's why, if I had been by her side, I should have been able to save her life. No matter what conspiracy or foul plots drew near, I definitely would have protected her. She, even though sounding resigned, should have been able to ask me for help. I just didn't realize it. Couldn't realize it. Just as I wouldn't have realized it if I was told of Yuki's accident. I wouldn't have been able to realize it. I wanted to cry. If I'd taken her words to heart, I would have prevented Yuki's accident. I would have been able to protect the girl whom I owed a debt for even a predetermined death. She must have been expecting that from me. I learned from the disaster while watching television in my house, until I learned that I had forgotten about Hinamizawa. In order to recover from the shock of Yuki's death, I tried to remove everything about that place from my memory. What an ungrateful fool I was. Even though in exchange for saving her, the girl who had told me in a way to save Yuki, I was unable to accept her gratitude, and now here we were. She hadn't died in her sleep due to a natural disaster. She was split open while still alive, killed while suffering the disgrace of having her organs torn out. She must have known beforehand, and on that day, on that year, she would be killed in such a terrifying way. But even knowing what end awaited her, she was all too weak. A lone girl, without anybody to rely upon, unable to seek help, had to swallow her own predetermined death, and left this mortal coil. She said she had wanted to live. She said she just wanted to live happily. That's all she wanted. She didn't ask for anything extravagant. From any person that was ever born, that was the very basis of desires. She never said a peep about wanting money, that she wished she was in somebody else's situation. She had said it, that if all the deaths were preordained, that hers was probably also according to plan. She might have been a lone, frail girl, but I don't think she would have accepted it at all without at least putting up a fight. There must have been, in some small way, some form of resistance that she mustered. With what she could muster, seeking my help was part of that. God damn it! I howled. I stomped the floor. Why did I become a police officer in the first place? How could I call myself an officer when I couldn't save a single girl from the misfortune that was waiting her? It was because there was so much going on that at that time I couldn't process the fact that she was asking for help. That's right, I was still green. If I was in that situation now, I would have definitely been able to help her. But it was already all over. Even if I wanted to settle the regrets that she left behind, Mizawa, as a dangerous area, was still quarantined. Most of the people involved were already dead, with the few that did remain spread around the country, unable to be traced. The stage of that tragedy was still off limits as well. The police investigation was put on hold, the case slowly being buried in the sands of time. Just like how I wouldn't have known unless Oshi had asked me about it. Akasaka-san, are you okay? At some point, Oshi had returned with a notebook in hand. Until I saw this expression on Oshi's face, I didn't realize I was in tears. I never realized she wanted help. Akasaka-san, calm down. It's all too late now. She was killed. In such an atrocious manner. She was counting on me, but I couldn't save her. I might also be at fault for not building up an amicable relationship in the village. If Rika Furude had told me about it, I might have been able to extend a helping hand. I wasn't able to build up enough trust for that. That's something I regret. When Oshi said the word trust, it weighed on me even more. Yes, she had given me her trust. She trusted me. Meaning that she thought I would have been able to ward off the fate of her unforeseen death. She believed in that. I cried. I felt in my hands and knees as I began to bawl. Eventually, Oshi spoke quietly. Akasaka-san, does that upset you? It does. Then, there's only one way worth mentioning of Rika Furude to have her revenge. Is there really? Is there a way to do that? Oshi showed me the pen and notebook. In order to properly mourn the death of Rika Furude, We have to at least find out the truth. The truth. Yes, not just Rikafuride. Lots of people died. Their lament must be immeasurable. But their deaths were left unsettled because of the disaster, and now we can't even investigate them as their memories fade into oblivion. Many people died. The old man was killed. Kuma-chan was erased. Everybody was a victim. But the police can't even investigate it. Who's going to take care of their parting regrets? Only we can. Akasaka-san. We find the truth. Yeah, we'll find it. We've been around every one of the string of mysterious deaths, and know all the inner workings of the village. You were told an important truth the year before that happened by Rikafuride. We can do it! But they're already dead. Oh. That's right. Rikafuride died. You were too inexperienced, so you couldn't save her. Oh, she grabbed me. It was a wreck, lifted me firmly by the lapels. That's why! To atone for that, we reveal the truth! If what you say is true, then all the incidents were part of some greater design. If that's the case, then how we investigate needs to change completely. I intend to spend tonight summarizing all the information you and I have, and to get into contact with some of the former subordinates first thing in the morning. We're not going to let the case go cold. We're definitely going to crack it wide open. Crack it open. Crack it open. We will. Several years have passed, but it's not beyond the statute of limitations. Even if the case has been postponed, it's not closed. It's still going. We're going to keep it going. Roshi and I vowed to bring the truth to the case to light, stood up. Everything ended in 1985. I, at least, wanting to apologize, had searched for her grave. After the state autopsy, her remains was entrusted to one of the shrine followers. In the future, when the quarantine on Hinamizawa area is lifted, Debbie returned to her family grave. However, unsure of who exactly the remains of Rikafuride until today, I couldn't even apologize to her. In the future, when the quarantine on Hinamizawa is lifted, all I could do was wait until whoever that person is returned to the grave. What I could do right now was not apologize to her. Instead, until I was able to meet her again, I'd reveal the truth and dispel her regrets. Even now, sporadic eruptions of gas in the Hinamizawa area meant that the prospect of quarantine being lifted wasn't happening anytime soon. Most likely, it seemed she had no intention of meeting me again until I found the truth. That's why the quarantine wouldn't be lifted, or so I thought. Until I grasped the truth. It was the following year. Oshi and I co-authored a book on the string of mysterious deaths leading up to the great Hinamizawa disaster. I decided on the title, Higurashi, When They Cry. It was because of those few days I was in Hinamizawa that the sound I remember the most was the cry of the Higurashi. I could only wish that, based on this book, those people involved in that incident would refresh their memories and bring to light a new truth. Importantly, that nothing like this ever happens again. I wrote this in the afterword. Why did this tragedy happen? We can't reach the truth by ourselves. If you're reading this, please discover the truth. That is our only wish. Kuradoshi, Mamoru Akasaka. Oh gosh, that feels familiar. That's like the beginning, that's from the end of Onikakushi. Please discover the truth. That is my only wish. This year, the quarantine on Hinamizawa still hasn't been lifted. Now there's a cat on your lap. Nice. Cat lap. Yay, Outcast session! Woo! Our only wish, picture of a book. Oh, that's sad. That breaks my heart. I was actually legitimately crying. I feel that's important to mention. Like, if you could probably hear it in my voice, but God, that part just made me sob like a fucking baby. Okay, time for the Outcast review session. Is it gonna start with Ezoshi? Thank you very much for playing Higurashi When They Cry. Himatsubushi. My oh my, no matter what else anybody says, I was the star of the scenario this time. On top of that, they had some nice jazzy theme music. If you can't laugh here, where can you laugh?
Anyways, has there been too much for you lately, Oshi?
Huh? What do you mean by that? Because, Oh! punched in the face. She meant that literally!
It's rather impertinent of you to try and hog the spotlight here, even though you already had all the screen time! Besides, Rekachan was the main heroine. Everybody else didn't really have any appearances, did they? Desne.
I heard that this time the scenario is a bit of a side story, but I didn't think that they would leave out the main cast this much. You didn't have it so bad, Mion-san. At least you had a few appearances, did you not? Both Rena-san and I didn't even have a cameo.
Rena still shows up in the covers a lot, so she's still okay.
Exactly what are you trying to say then? That I'm the only outcast with no appearance, is that it?
Nipa!
They only treated me horribly!
How sad. They probably just keep treating you worse and worse until you finally drop down to a supporting role.
Rika! That's just too much!
That's not true! There's a lot of people who like Sadako-chan! They won't treat you that horribly, okay? I don't like being treated like this! I think you'll probably have a lot of appearances next time. So cheer up, okay?
But I'd heard that the scenario is supposed to be somewhat of a bonus story. But is it really? I think that things kind of got complicated.
The story was difficult for me to understand.
No, it wasn't, Rika. You know the truth.
Yeah. What I found the hardest to believe was that the year before the string of mysterious deaths, Rika had already known about them.
Which means all the incidences were part of somebody's scenario. That's a pretty important piece of information.
It's probably because I'm a shrine maiden, so I knew the future from Oroshiro-sama's divine revelations.
For somebody like me who believes in the theory that it was the work of human culprits, I'd like to deny that.
I'd believe in the curse so that Rekachan, who's the living incarnation of the deity that protects Hinamizawa Oroshiro-sama, could have that divine power as a possibility, I think.
Nope. For someone who thinks it's the work of man, it's kind of unfounded fantasy will not stand. All the incidents were caused by people. There's no curse or magic or aimbots or cheat codes. I mean, it's technically... Well, the thing was, Sadako was tormented in that arc. I hardly think of that being a backstory arc being good enough.
It'd be wonderful if I could use magic, though. If it's Rekachan, I could go along with that!
Well, for the people who believe it was the work of humans, the ending was a big revelation. From the first incident until Rekachan was murdered in the Great Disaster, everything was scripted. Knowing that it's all one big incident vastly increases the amount of material you can hypothesize with.
I think that the prophecy is proof in itself that Rekachan has some divine power. In other words, it's proof that there's something mysterious power at work in Hinamizawa. I think it's proof that the incidents weren't the work of humans alone. The inside of my head is so muddled I don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's right. More importantly, that expression that Rekachan was wearing this time. That was super scary, wasn't it?
Meep. Yeah, I was surprised too. I never thought that cute little Rika would laugh like that.
Hey, just for a little bit. Could you show us that face one more time?
I don't want to.
I don't want her to do that outside the story! What is this? A blackout? Nobody move! Any weird movements and you come face to face with a combo trap that makes you from a pendulum to a landmine to an electric shower with a pain cell. Psycho! What's the meaning of this? It's Takano!
We're now starting the after party for everybody who didn't have an appearance this time! Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Hello again, everybody.
I didn't think that I'd have appearance here, of all places. I'm delighted, though. Sadako-chan, thank you.
Whoa! Hello, everybody! Oh my, didn't I warn you not to move? Yuka-san, are you okay? Hojo-san, you didn't have to go this far. The grudge of somebody not making an appearance is a terrible thing! Sadako has lots of appearances in the main scenario.
Look, granted somebody not making an appearance! Damn it! Why was she able to set up this many traps?
Maybe. That's when this place was selected as the venue for the after party! The point my traps were already set?
Oh, I know! There's somebody behind you pulling the strings! There is, isn't there? Come out! Is it Shion? It's Shion, I knew it! Hello, my sister! How are you doing?
Oh, it's Shion-chan, hello! Ah! I feel sorry for her falling for the same trap twice.
I thought it was you, Shion! Even though you're penciled in to be the main character in the next scenario, this is an outrage! Now you've gone and done it! Even if it's only the bonus scene before the answer arcs, I can't let my sister have all the appearances. I'm not that generous, you know. Well, in any case, I just let Sadako start a little something-something. Shion, what is it you want? Let's just say I'm securing myself a little safety buffer. The other day, for some reason, you were steadily getting more votes in the popularity poll.
Yep. In the first half of the Watanagashi chapter, there were a lot of people getting infatuated with Mii-chan.
When your malicious side made its appearance, all the players suddenly started noticing my charm. Sadako also earned a great reputation during the Tatori Goto... Fuck! I'm fucking up like Rekachan did. And goddamn Rena. I'm terrible at this. Tatori Goroshi. Rena and Rekachan have strong baseline of support. Your popularity has long since faded away. That's why I thought I'd take the time now to crush you and Sadako, who've been getting too many votes for my comfort. So I came up with this elaborate plan. Ha! Shion-chan, what'd you say just now? You're gonna crush me as well? You're a little slow to notice, aren't you, Shorty? Here you go. What? Oof. Goodbye, all you regulars. Hello, all you irregular folk. All the main characters are done for. Shion-chan, you don't have to go that far, probably. Now, Jiro-san. It's interesting, so let it be. The number of appearances for the both of us is going to go up, you know, Jiro-san. Do you not like being by my side? That's not true.
Chia-sensei! Did Chi-chan pay you off too?
I'm sorry, Ryugu-san. Shion-san said make me a new segment called Teach Me Chia-sensei starting for the next scenario, so I just... Well then! Who should I dispose of next in the most embarrassing manner? Maybe Sadako, since she helped me set this all up. I won't allow that! Hiya! Hi, Irie-sensei. Coach! He seems somehow reliable for once. Oh! I, Kyosuke Irie, shall not allow any aggression against Satoko-chan. I may also just be a supporting character, but don't think you can persuade me so easily. Oh, then you're saying you want to withdraw from being the lead in live performance Sadako made training dress-up chapter that we planned on filming after this? Oh no. Shield-sama! I, Kurosuke Irie, shall follow you to the depths of hell! Irie! That was fast! Well then! With this, I'm holding all the cards. Even in this after-party scene, too. I'll have everything proceed as I see fit. Huh? We're missing somebody. Shion-sama! Rana-san isn't here! She escaped at some point. There she is! Ryugu-san! Didn't I just tell you shouldn't move? Rana-chan! I won't do anything to hurt you, but it's easier if you don't resist. Sorry, but this is all really bizarre! What are you trying to do? The light switches? I see. You're planning to do something when the room's pitch black, aren't you? Resistance is futile. Rana-san! You should stop your pointless resistance and just come along peacefully. If you make me angry enough, then not only will you suffer, but so will my dear sister as well. You can't do anything just by turning off the lights! Then I'm sorry, but do what they say.
It's alright, don't worry. By turning off the lights, we can reverse the situation.
Reverse the situation? Exactly what are you scheming? Rena-san, you're pretty good at making me laugh. Then why don't you go ahead and try? Show me how you're going to turn this around.
You're spoiled, Chi-chan. Even if you don't make any appearances in the main scenario, you have so much screen time during this after party, you're spoiled!
When exactly are you saying I was spoiled?
You don't understand, Chi-chan. Even if it's just the after party, you still have an appearance. You also appeared in a lot of previous scenarios. There's somebody who resents you from the depths of hell, who can't forgive you. Listen, can't you hear it, Chi-chan? That's right! I understand now! I get it! Kei-chan! That's right! He never has an appearance during the after parties! There's no way Kei-chan will allow somebody to monopolize the after parties all to themselves without him!
I see. So, how is Kei-chan going to appear here when he doesn't even have any character art? It couldn't possibly be that they'd insert new character art just for this.
That's just your self-centered way of thinking, Chi-chan! Ah! No!
The lights are turned off!
Chia-sensei! Hold Rekachan back! Huh? Huh? It's too late!
Click!
Save me, Kei-chan!
That voice is Kei-chan? Rena, you have my thanks! When even the moon abandons land and shrouds it in true darkness. The demon lord of the darkest black, Keiichi Maruhara, shall appear! I see, if it's like this, he can appear even if he doesn't have any character art. There's no character or background art, so it's really easy on the production staff. Shion! You act like you're the main character in a tragedy. From my point of view, it's more like a comedy! Seems like you've gotten a little carried away. Every after party, without any character art, without any sort of appreciation, witness my anger, my grudge, and all of my sorrow! I shall instill it all upon you! It almost seems like Kei-chan's doing some sort of bad guy transformation sequence. Since some short transformation, I'll have you know I've always been a demon lord, and as of right now, this world, which is enveloped within true darkness, shall dance upon the palm of my hand! Within this world of darkness, there is none who can oppose me!
Kei-chan's kind of scary. How?
Scary. The age of the frightened Higurashi have come at last! From here on out, begins the dawn of a perverted and cutesy Higurashi!
What did you say? My Mother-sama! Bring me with
you! You know it, coach. Then at first step, I'll show our doctor... No, I can't say that! What is this? Takano-san in a miniskirt nurse outfit! Just not some pink one like you find in a porno. He knows what he's doing! It's a proper, pure, and innocent white! Even though she's a nurse, she doesn't appear in the outfit once during the main scenario. You've got to be kidding me! Well then, on the next target... Rena! This hasn't changed the situation at all. It's just turned into a different type of crisis.
I can't do anything in this darkness.
Now then, what should I make wear that next? Maybe a cute uniform, jib, school clothes, swimsuit, triple combo. My Bada-sama, you're the best. How about a bunny girl or campaign girl? No. Lingerie can be good too. No, wait. How about just making everybody naked? But of course, leave the socks on. Whoa, that's a good idea. You know your stuff. Coach, I feel like we're finally seeing eye to eye here. Wait, Maribata-san. No, Kei. Call me Ill from now on. Call me Dr. Ill. Kei! We can't forgive you about this. Tell me and Kurado are already on your side, Kei. Tommy, Kurado! We're all finally here. The Elite Four have arrived! Finally. With Kei at their head, the evil Elite Four made their grand entrance. With the complete darkness, the demon lord of darkest black, Keiichi Maruhara, was finally able to reach the sea for swift. His magical power was without equal. In this darkness, nobody could stand against him. All must bow. Will the heroines be unable to escape this darkness and be forced to submit to the will of the demon lord, forced to wear embarrassing outfits after embarrassing outfit? being used as life-size dress-up dolls for all eternity? That's great! More! By the way, school swimsuits are classic type, right? I won't forgive you if they're the competitive swimming type! Damn it! Shion! Like Shion end up as this, so do something about it! It's alright, sis. Kei-chan isn't the only one who's unleashed their true power amid the darkness. Huh? Did we have such a convenient ally? Gah! You're rather impudent, Shion Sorozaki! Also, if you're expecting help from the principal, that's too bad! This is the ultimate desire of young men. If you call yourself a man, do your best! It's written in this little authorized slip here. Of course, you won't be able to rely on a newcomer Akasaka-san either. He's on a private couple's hot spring vacation with his wife family set up for them since yesterday. In other words, all the bases are covered! You're so naive, Kei-chan. Even characters who have art are able to reveal their true form in the darkness. Chie-sensei! That's how it is, Maibara-kun. It's dark, so I can't really tell, but it seems like Chie-sensei's outfit is different. What are those? All those swords in her hands? They couldn't be. The Black Bomb! Any more than that is a secret. Maibara-kun, that's just a little too much mischief on your part. The church can't overlook any more of this. Wait a minute. There's no way, right? That's cheating! It's against the rules! Hey, she can't do this, right? Wait, you can't use that big one! Huh? Her archetype started up invincibility? The seven... Oof. Oh. I fucking love this. I love the after parties. The after parties are great. Keiichi has been surmounted by Chie-sensei. There was no saving. He is doomed. That was great, holy shit. It's not over!
Hello again. Thank you very much for playing Higurashi When They Cry, Himatsubushi. I think you already know this, but Higurashi When They Cry is a type of visual novel without any choices. Therefore, compared to the adventure-type visual novels with branching routes to take, it's much closer to the experience of a book or a movie. Because of that, there's an opinion out there that there shouldn't be called a game, per se. If you're just watching it like a book or a movie,
always doomed.
Higurashi When They Cry isn't really a game, true. That's why, as you know, there's a lot of mysteries referenced during the course of the experience. When you challenge those, this work becomes a proper game. All the players have the privilege of scrutinizing this mystery-packed story from all sorts of angles. For example, forming a theory around the mysteries during the courses of the story, sharing them with your friends, and receiving their theories in return could be fun. In any case, the next chapter starts the answer arcs. We're tentatively calling it Meikakushi. But answers are a sad thing. Based on what is revealed, all the possibilities that you were allowed to imagine until now will suddenly become refined down to a few. Based on that logic, you know that right here, before the answer arcs, is probably where people could enjoy this work we called Higurashi When They Cry the most. If by chance, while you're reading this, you already have the Meikakushi chapter at hand, please enjoy hypothesizing, theorizing, fantasying to the fullest before you start. That's where the real charm of the series takes place. Sorry for saying something so imprudent. There's nothing better that we'd like for you than to enjoy Higurashi When They Cry. Well then, have a long, pleasant night. We're waiting for you all in Hinamizawa. If you come and play with Rena, I'd like to go treasure hunting together. Oh.
Aw, Rena. That's sweet. With that ends it. And yes, I know it's only Wednesday. I am not playing the next chapter till next week, so that way I can start it before I go visiting Mike, and then Mike can join me for the end part of it, because it's gonna be great. So everyone have a good night. And may the Higurashi lull you into a gentle sleep.